Welcome to the stream. We had some hardware problems, had to do a quick reboot, kind of the usual story. So today we're going to talk about colorizing your source files, especially when you have a new language that is non-standard or has non-standard keywords. And this works for just about any kind of file, kind of text file. But I'm doing it because of the 5108 assembly language files. So we're going to go from this plain black and white kind of looking view to the nice syntax colored kind of view, which everyone's used to in modern IDEs. So let's go ahead and drop right into it. First off, we're going to start off with the official documentation where everybody, read the manual, right? Well, here's the manual, and we'll include a link to this later. But it does have all of the information necessary about these file formats that we're going to be working with. And it's useful as for a couple of things. Obviously, I didn't start with here. I just started hacking and slashing on existing files, and then eventually came here to figure out why I'd busted things. So we start off with the terminal, because we're in Linux, and Linux, you live in the terminal, yes? So what this all is all about is Gedit. So we're going to bring up Gedit, and we're going to bring it up on one of the files I already have ready to go. Put it into the background, and of course it comes up in the separate window up here instead of where I wanted it to, but that's okay, because we can move it around. There we go. Oof, that is small. So, the reality is there are two types of files that we're dealing with. Style files, which are the colors for various types of things, keywords, numbers, and foreground, background of the highlighted line, that kind of thing. And in Gedit, all of those can be readily picked up here in the preferences under fonts and colors. And here are your classic color scheme, which is horrible because you can't see the numbers on the side. But then you have your Cobalt Blue, your Kate, Oblivion. I kind of like this Yaru dark color scheme. And so if you want to modify one of these and create one of your own, it's fairly straightforward. You have to copy the existing one from its location, which is in user share. And then this is where the folder gets a little confusing, but it's going to be G or lib gedit something or another. And GTKSource view is the library that's behind all of this colorization, but the number is going to be different depending on your installation. And if we, actually, let's just change directory there. And then you have both the language spec location and the styles. So if we go into styles, list there, those are all the names that you saw earlier in the list. In the picker. And so from here, we can just copy, let's see. We're going to yaru. I don't know what it is. Anybody know what it is? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to copy that over up into my home directory, and we're going to call it yepdark. And now that's one place to start. Let's come back over here. Yes, we'll reload the file. So now we have a known working, which is very important here, known working style file that we can kind of work from. And you see it has a number of default colors, blue 1 through 5, and they're colored by their red, green, blue values. So in order to find these kind of red, green, blue values, you can use a utility called gpick. And that brings up a little color picker where you can just browse around wherever your cursor or mouse cursor is over. You can see it down in this little box here. So let's see, this blue, if we pick it, it's actually cobalt. And it's 13458A. So if we look over into our file, Let's see, I don't know, Cobalt's in here, but I think Cobalt, actually, there's a number of stock names. So if, for example, let's see, right here we have the line numbers. Let's mess with the line numbers since they're on every page here. And instead of this named color, having a little trouble with the mouse today. Instead of this named color, let's go ahead and back over to the color picker, and it was 13458A was Cobalt. Now, in theory, from what they claim, you could just say Cobalt, but well, actually, let's do that. We're going to come in here and lock and copy yellow, and this will be our custom color. We'll call it my color, and give it the value from the color the color pickle. 13458A. 13458A. So that's my color. And we're going to then use my color. And I've had this trouble a lot with this mouse. It doesn't seem to pick the first character. So now we're going to say line numbers is my color. And you see there's other decorations you can put on the text. So background is my color. The foreground is dark number 2. Dark number 2 relates back up here. Dark number 2, and that's this particular color value. I hadn't found yet where you can just put this value in and see an example of it. I thought that would be a thing that the color picker here would do, but I haven't found it yet. So, but we can certainly see what it is, because the background being cobalt and the foreground being that color, that'll be interesting. So now we have our own little dark color scheme, or color style as they say. So let's go ahead and install it. We can actually just go in here to preferences, fonts and colors, hit the plus sign, and there it is right there. Dark. Oh, the selected color scheme cannot be installed. Well, that's problematic, isn't it? Now, why would that be? That was not what happened in practice. Alright, let's see. Color, yeah, color. Alright, well, this is what I would do and have done in the past, is we use first off, let's go ahead and grab my color line here, copy that into the buffer, and then just hit Control Z until it's all back to the way it was. Let's see if we can install it here again. Oh, it might be that I've already called one this and it's already been installed. Let's see. Yeah, that might be the problem. Although it doesn't look like it's there. Oh, see, so this is kind of the headache in these. Here's its name. Yes, can't have the same name. So this has got to be dark. I believe that's all we will need to go ahead and install it now. Fonts and colors, install, add the scheme. Now we have the scheme there. Okay, so now that we have the scheme, now what it's done is it's installed it into the folder. So before we can make changes and see the updates, we have to basically uninstall it. So make sure we pick the one we like most of the time. So now we can freshly make a change. Give it our my color entry. Make the line numbers, instead of changing the background of the line numbers, let's change the foreground of the line numbers to my color. Save that off. Now, if we go ahead and install it again, sure enough, our line colors changed to that blue that we had picked before. So that's essentially how these work. They're all XML files, and there's a lot of back references to things, and things like your file name has to be the same as the ID and name inside the file. Those kinds of restrictions. Let's just put that here. So you see the first part of it is the palette. A name equals a value. Then we get down into the styles, things like a background pattern or the current line, which you can see here kind of has a very thin shade to it. So we have a background of a dark alt and a foreground. Well, that one doesn't have a foreground because you want to have the foreground color be the same as it was before when it becomes the highlighted line. But you can readily change it. Let's go ahead and change it to dark 3. So the current line becomes dark 3, or, well, we could make it even more dramatic. How about yellow 3? And of course, everything's case sensitive because it's Linux. Now, all I'm doing here is saving the file to my copy, right? So I haven't installed it again. Let's go ahead and go to the fonts and colors, uninstall the custom, reinstall the custom, and close it out. And then, oh, our current line doesn't seem to be showing up here, does it? That's probably because yellow number 3 doesn't exist because case sensitive. So there we go. Correct that. Save it. And replace it yet again. And there we go. Oh God, that's ugly. I mean, it works, but that's kind of an ugly highlight, don't you think? So that's pretty much the baseline of it. There's your global styles, the current line and line numbers, search matches. When you do Control F and you say DEF, that says the search match is going to be green 5 for the foreground or background, and foreground is light 2, and so we end up with this kind of highlighting, and that is for the searches. Now, if we keep scrolling down, you get into these definitions, right? So a base-in integer is going to be purple, a Boolean is purple, and these kind of defined constants are what's going to be used by your language file later to relate different collections of characters as being either a number or I don't know what a shebang is. Okay, I'll have to look that one up. Or a string, or a type, and so on. So what happens is in your language file, you end up referring to mostly these def formats here. And this has some custom ones already designed for various languages of C#, C, the CSS, Python, Rust, etc. And of course XML, which is what we're editing. So that's pretty much the style file and how you can go about changing the colors that you have in your editor at a sort of a global level. But now let's see, first off, let's change my current line highlighting because boy, that yellow is ugly. So let's not make it yellow. Let's make it, what was it, dark 3? Can't even see that.
Say hi to everybody, and your light's not on.
My light's not on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, yeah, well, that's what happens when you suddenly have to reboot later. Let's see. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You can see we're really prepared today. Let's uninstall, reinstall our... There we go. That's a much more tolerable line highlighting there. So that's our style file. Now we have to edit the file for our language. Now, conveniently, let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and exit this and we'll come back to it. We don't need the color picker anymore. Whoops. So the next location that we're looking at is the language specs. And these are all the different language highlighting files. And this is where it gets a little bit more annoying because there's no add and remove for this that I can find. And this folder is root access only. And so it gets a little trickier to get things added here. But luckily, in the mainline documentation, they do have an example of the language definition files, and they get into what each line means and the different standards, what's required, what isn't required. So you can assign your type of file to a particular extension or MIME type. MIME types are essentially the way that an email identifies another block of data. So in this case, it's a text file that's X, a CSource file. So X means experimental. Weirdly enough, it's all still considered experimental after all these years. But then it gets into all this. So it breaks it all down for you. Again, we'd love to read all the instructions, but we're not going to. We're going to just scroll all the way down to the bottom. And here's an example file for the C language. And you can readily just copy this out, save it. You do have to rename it because you already have a C language file, so you have to give it some other ID. And I have already done that for us in the, let's see, we're going to say super user do gedit of the yup language file that we have already modified earlier. And don't forget to put that into the background. And did that work? Oh, you got to put in your password. And I don't want to show off my password just now. Let's see. It's not supposed to show off your password. Normally that's blank.
Oh, there was the password.
No, that was not my password. It was just a couple of letters, thank you. So we'll just do this the other way, which is we'll go ahead and copy the yup language back up to the home folder. And then we can go back to the home folder. And there it is, yup lang. Now we can safely edit yup lang into the background. And here we have yup lang. And this is, well, it was originally based off of the full C language file, which was what happened because I had not yet found the instructions and had not found that convenient little example. But, you know, through much saving and reloading, I was able to get this working. So same kind of thing. You've got your header file. You've got to have your names, match your names. Then you have your meta properties. In my case, I'm using the asterisk ASM file type. And then we have our styles. We have a style for comments, strings, keywords, types, escape characters. They have both an ID and a name, and I guess by some manner of convention, the ID is all lowercase and the name is camel-cased, I guess, each capital letter of each word, and also expanded. Clearly the IDs can't have spaces in them, but the names can. And this is where it maps off to those define constants that we saw in the other link in the style file. So, but what this is a comment defined goes to the color standard of def comment in the style file. But what is a comment? Well, in my file, a comment is anything that starts with an asterisk all the way to the end of the line. So this is a way of using what are referred to as regular expressions which are not at all regular, but and is something of a bit of witchcraft in Linux in general. But the long and the short of it is, because the hashtag symbol is actually a special character that the files understand, you have to use the backslash to escape that character. So I spoke of forward slash and backslash being issues in the previous video, which will be maybe linked up here somewhere. So we have to escape that, and then we use the special character $sign that means the end of the line. So the beginning of the line is the caret character, this guy. So this basically says a comment is anything that starts with a hashtag all the way to the end of the line. And another one, like, well, that's a complicated one. So we can have another one would be a string. And a string is something that begins with a quoted, a double quote, although not necessarily at the beginning of a line, and then ends with another double quote. Within those quoted strings, you can have escape characters. And escape characters are start with a underscore, start with the backslash, and then this percent escape character includes this group of escape characters up here. So we have a leading backslash, which again we have to use 2 backslashes because backslash is special. And then that begins a group. That's the end of the group down here. Within that group, we are going to have any number of other characters. They are yet another backslash, so that you can backslash in your C language and get a single backslash. Or it's going to be a quoted character, so slash quote. Or you're going to have the, now these backslashes here, backslash quote and double quote backslash single quote, those are there because this file would otherwise interpret the double quote and the single quote as file of characters to read. And instead you're trying to say they're part of this collection of special. They're part of this collection of special characters that include the letters N, R, B, T, F, A, V, E. And so then you're saying, or question mark. But also question mark has a special character meaning in the regular expressions. So if you have questions about regular expressions and how to set those up, I would highly suggest you run to ChatGPT on all that. They're something, like I said, something of a dark magic within Linux. But then, of course, other escaped characters would be something like 1, 2, or 3 octal digits. So if you do a slash 1, 2, 3 in a C file, that's going to be an octal number. And those octal numbers will be the characters 0 through 7. And there's going to be 1, 2, or 3 of them. And that's what all of this bracket and curly brace mean. So it's actually saying you're going to have a backslash 1 of these characters, or a 0 through 7 digit and 1 to 3 of those 0 through 7 digits, or a hex, an X, so slash X, for hexadecimal numbers, and that's going to be the characters 0 through 9, A through F capital, and A through F lowercase, and plus is any number of those. So you could have very large hexadecimal digits. So that's essentially what's happening in this file, this language file. Say, for example, here we have a hexadecimal number. So hexadecimal numbers, we want to have a special color assigned to those. So up here we say hexadecimal numbers are defined, or mapped rather, off to the definition in the style file for base in integers. And if we go ahead and bring our dark up. So our base in integers, see if I can find it right now, or we'll just search for it. There we go. And that's what EASE. There. So our base integer maps off to the color purple. Purple number 2 to be exact. So again, let's say, for example, let's see, whatever, data type, right? In a data type in C, it's going to be things like character and so forth. In mine, I use the data types to refer to the key letters in the assembly language. So further on down here, we have defined our data types. And in my language, these are the frontline characters of include, or origin, or define, literal, string, write a character. And these all happen, and they have to happen on the beginning of the line, thus the caret that says, if you find at the beginning of a line a capital I, that is considered a valid type. Back up here in the types, that is going to map to a data type, which then maps to def type. And then over here, we have our def type line, which says that the foreground is blue and it is bold as true. So you also can do bold and underline and those kinds of things as far as decorating your source is concerned. So you get an idea of how this all sort of maps together. It goes in different levels. So one of the things I didn't like about it is, say for example, we made a mistake in the file, right? Left off a double quote. Save that as our language file. Let's go ahead and open one of my assembly files. You see down here, it's using the yup code. Now, I'm editing the file outside of its regular location, so it hasn't changed yet. But this is where you would go and change what type of file this is. Now, obviously, it's trying to figure it out from the file type and those kinds of things, so generally it gets it right. But if you're typing a new file and you start off with just plain text, then you can otherwise come down here at the bottom of Gedit and pick which one you'd rather it be. So I can pick a coloring for C, and so obviously we get some strange examples going on here. Let's go back to the, actually let's leave it in C for the moment. We'll go back over to our yup lang. We've edited it and induced an error. And so let's copy. We're probably going to have to, that'd be really weird if it, but anyway, let's see if it'll let me copy or if it'll complain. So we're going to copy the yup lang XML over to user share live gedit source view slash, and it is the language specs are the same file. Says it's done. We'll see if it actually edited, if it succeeded. So if we go back over here to our yup ASM, it's now currently C. If we put it back over to the yup language, no, it doesn't look like it overwrote it. So let's see. On the same file. There's some Linuxisms there. Let's run back over. I don't want to do the -R, that'd be recursive. And why does it think it's the same file when it's modified? Let's see. That's what it's supposed to do when it asks for your password, not show it off to everyone. How is it the same file? Well, let's see if we can do it this way. First, we'll take the yupling, and remove it. Can I remove permission denied? So do it. Now we've deleted it for sure. In fact, if we go back over here and we load up the next one up, and I tried to load the yuplang, it thinks it loaded up yuplang, but it didn't. It failed because it didn't find it. And so this list that you see down here really only refreshes when you restart Gedit. And so often the way they've recommended is if you do any kind of editing to restart Gedit before you reload it. That gets a little tedious, if you will, especially if you have several files running already. So let's go back over here and replace it using the copy command that I wanted to do earlier. Oh, what? Oh. See, it knew what I wanted. It was confused because I was telling it to do the wrong thing. There we go. It wasn't yup dark I wanted to copy over, it was yuplang. Yupling and yupling are the same file. Hmm. That is, I'm not sure what I'm getting wrong here, to tell you the truth. Hmm. Yeah, there we go. I just didn't need that last period afterwards. Sometimes when you switch back and forth between operating systems, it takes a while to remember all the idiosyncrasies. So now we've copied our yuplang back in there. So if we go back to Erlang, whatever that language is, and then load up yup, oh, and it doesn't do it. What is your problem? Oh yeah, it doesn't do it because we introduced an error, right? So let's go ahead and correct the error. Now we have a corrected file. We can copy that back over and make sure we're on the file we care about. Go off to that one, come back to yup, and there we go. It loads up properly. And I forgot what we changed about it. It took so long, I forgot the change. But you get the idea, I think. The main point being that the style file is global styles for different types of special words or special collections of characters. And the language file is what defines what are those special collections of characters. So, for example, an invalid hexadecimal would have these A through 9, but might also have the letters G through Z in them. So slash or 0 X or capital X, A through F or capital A through F, and 0 through 9, that's all a legitimate hexadecimal number. But if you include any kind of G through Z, either lowercase or uppercase, then that would be considered an invalid hexadecimal number. And that allows you to have, if you type an invalid hexadecimal number, you can then say, well, that's an error. And then, of course, errors map off to, not surprisingly, the default error. And in your color file, your error, if I can find it right quick, there it is. Well, that's not the one I wanted. Really, there's only one of one. There should be a... No? Why is there no default error in there? Maps to def error, that's what it says. Well, the other thing about these is they're kind of flexible, if you will, and that some things that you do wrong will succeed and some things that just don't map. So I'm assuming that since there is no def error in the color file, then, or the style file, then it will just not do anything. It won't change the color of that. We might have to run a test to see if that's the case, but well, I originally pitched this as demystifying this, and you can see why it needs demystification. But with any luck, I have helped clear up some things about it for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. If anyone's there, hello, knock knock. Anyone there? Got any questions to go? We'll try out some other things if you like. But otherwise, that was pretty much the kind of length I was looking for. Oh, hello. That's pretty much the length of the video I was targeting for this one. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them down below. We can experiment with this a little bit more. I can do some screenshots and things like that. And otherwise, thanks for joining. And we shall see you later on the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe and all that kind of fun stuff.